Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to another fine episode of Record Breakers. I'm Peter Rick, your man with no plan. Here with me is my quorum of record reviewers and yahoos and my friends. We've got Brett.
Yahoo.
We've got Drew.
Hey.
And we've got Patrick.
I just want to let everyone know that Petey just quoted the Black Eyed Peas, and I'm disappointed in him for it.
We are gathered together to talk about music, as we do every week. And we are talking about an album that is provided by none other than Patrick. Patrick, what do you have for us this evening?
So I picked an album that I really, really like by a band called Parachute Musical. It's their last album called Kill It, Cut It Down. It's kind of a piano rock, indie rock thing from a couple of years ago. They're a band from Washington, D.C., moved to Nashville and did most of their career in that sort of neck of the woods. This was their last album. They did it on a Kickstarter campaign like everybody does now. And, they were, I guess, doing this in 2011, so it might have been a little bit ahead of the game, but early on in those days. And, basically recorded this, toured for a little bit, and then everybody decided to go on with their lives and do something other than this band, and it was very sad.
And I'll go around the horn and ask, Drew, what expectations did you have coming into this album?
Well, this album was sort of given to, I believe, Swagger as well, but me, at least, I know I was brought to it through I don't know if I'd call her a friend of the show. I don't think she listens. But friend of
us.
The host.
Friends of us. Cowgirl
Curtis.
Ryan Carmichael. She brought them up one time or another in a Google Hangout, and I listened to a couple of the songs, so I sort of knew the general sound I was getting into, but I listened to a couple of the songs when they were brought up, and then I let it sort of fall by the wayside. They weren't something I checked in on more than that, I guess. So bringing it back around, for Swagger bringing it up, I was like, oh, okay, so now I'll have an excuse to dive more into the thing that I listened to a couple of before.
Mm-hmm. Brett, what expectations did you have coming into this album?
I had none, and knowing that Ryan threw this album around explains a lot, because it seems very familiar to other bands that I know that she listens to. But no, I had no idea who this band was. I actually had difficulty finding a way to listen to this in a most comical way, mostly my problems with my own little way of getting music. But no, I had never been anywhere near my radar. I had no expectations coming in. I didn't even know what I was. Nobody even told me what kind of music it was going to be before I listened to it. So I came to this fresh.
Mm-hmm. The only expectations I had was possibly some pretty boys singing prettily, and that's about it. I'm just going to be honest.
Wow, I think you just summed up Ryan's musical taste very well.
That's fair.
But Patrick, what would you say are the themes and elements that make up this band and album?
So they're very piano-y a lot of the time, but there's also this album, a fair amount of guitar work. It's sort of pop rock. It's very sing-along. It's got a lot of really good vocal harmonies, surprisingly good bass lines, which I think, are just a thing that I always end up gravitating towards for some reason. They tend to have most of their songs be kind of upbeat and poppy, but they're a lot of the times lyrically a little more serious and, kind of emo-y, I guess, in some ways. Good strong vocals and banging on a piano pretty regularly.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what would be the themes and elements that stood out for you?
Well, for me, this album was a bit weird. It was, like Swagger said, there are some cool bass melodies to it, cool piano melodies to it. Overall, it was catchy, and while I was listening to it, there was a definite feeling of, you just sort of bounce around, you just sort of have your fun while you're listening to it. But I was hit with the fact that I had listened to it before, and I didn't go back to it. And as I went through the album, I would go through part of the album, I would sort of go about my day or whatever away from the album, and I would come back to listen to the rest of it, and I would forget where I was. I would forget like what I had listened to, so I'd have to start from the beginning again, or like bounce through songs. And that was my overall feel. Was while I was listening to it, it was very catchy, and it was fun. It had the sort of like Patrick said, it's that sort of emo-y, woe is me sort of music. There's a song in there where I think I know where Patrick finds his love for this band. He knows what I'm talking about, I'm pretty sure.
I've got one of two ideas, and I'm guessing it's one fairly in the middle of the record.
Possibly. But there's that overall feeling that it's very emo-y, very sad, forlorn sort of lyrics. And like, I can dig that to a point, but I want it to be sort of like undercut by something a bit more like fast-paced to me. I don't know, like there was something about it that just didn't hit for me overall. But while I was listening to it, I still thought it was catchy. I still thought it sort of got me like bouncing around, tapping my fingers. But then like after I was away, I was like, okay, now I gotta get back to it. But I don't know. It's weird to me. I've never had that happen besides with this record.
It has an odd aftertaste, you would say.
Yes, that's a good point.
Brett, what would be the themes and elements that stood out for you?
Yeah, I'll have to piggyback a little bit off of Drew. Yeah, there were a lot of self-doubt and kind of live journal lyrics going on in this album. But it sort of felt like it was at the template of like an adult top 40s, like that formula. You know, I didn't hear any instrumentation that stood out. I mean, there were keyboards in it, and I could tell they were doing kind of a little bit of the Ben Folds feel, like post Ben Folds 5, but they didn't have the skill to back it on the keys. It was just there as another instrument. It stood all on its lyrics, and that's the worst way to send an album to me, because especially when I don't really attach to them. I did see a lot of technical skill. I mean, what they did was good, but it didn't stand out. It was an album that didn't seem to take a lot of risks. And it just turned, with the lyrics and with the way that they wrote the songs and presented them to me, it didn't feel like a song from our current decade. It felt like something that I would have heard, 8 years ago.
That's a definitely interesting kind of look at it. Patrick, what would be some of the key tracks and key songs to zero in on?
Okay, as is traditional on this show, I'll talk about the opener, Back to Life. I think this is just a really good example of what they do. Piano kicks it off. Vocals are really strong. Vocal harmonies are something they definitely pull out occasionally. And it sort of, I think, leads to their sort of sing-along nature. And, that to me is one of the things I really like. One in the middle of the album, Kill It, Cut It Down, which is probably the song Drew was thinking I was thinking about. We just get a wink from the Drew.
Huh?
Kill It, Cut It Down, that one?
Nope. I put it in the chat. I put it in the chat.
Oh, no, we'll go to that one next. Kill It, Cut It Down. It hits me right in the fucking feels, and it's a really good song. Hometown is the first song I ever heard, and I have the best memory in the world of hearing it, and that's probably why I love this album. It was my first year at Dragon Con, getting a ride back to my hotel from Ryan, and her belting this out in her car. It was hysterical. And it was the first time I heard it, and I was in. And I think that, as I understand it, this was like an older song that never made it to any of their old albums, and they just sort of threw it onto this one. And I just love it. I think it's better than, most of the indie rock crap you hear on the radio these days that tends to mostly be kind of not very good once you hear it. I think it's
or kind of not indie.
I'm not.
No. Like the modern indie rock is not very indie.
No, it is. I'm saying indie as
way
a
over
style,
indie.
not indie as independently produced from record labels. I'm saying it as the genre that it has become in the current era of things. Also, somebody on a Miami sports team scored.
No, I was getting my notification about my fantasy football team. at the moment. But that's beside the point.
Petey, mute your phone.
That's
He
beside
reminded
the
me to mute
point.
mine because I definitely hadn't. So,
True. What would be the key tracks, the songs that stood out for you?
I'll explain why I was chuckling in a bit. Reflection. I'm gonna skip to that one. I like the bass line in that one. It was simple. It was driving. It was kind of cool. I wish that would have been the first track. That to me was a little bit more memorable than the first track. Kill It, Cut It Down. The thing to me is if you're going to title the album off of a song on the album, the song better hold up comparatively to the rest of the album. It better be one of the stronger tracks on there. That doesn't always happen, at least in my opinion. This one it does. I think Kill It, Cut It Down is definitely one of the stronger ones. But why I was laughing, Hometown. In my notes, I actually have that the song just feels like it's complete fan service. It feels like the song that is made for people to just belt it out at the concert. It's for fans of this band and this genre of music to just be in the crowd yelling at the band, maybe not singing so much, but just getting it out there. And to hear that Ryan did exactly that in the car with Patrick makes me think I was spot on.
It sounds
with that
exactly
assessment.
like you think it would with
Yep.
it. It's exactly what you think.
Yep. But those are the three that really stood out to me on this one.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Brett, what would be some of the tracks that stood out for you, if any?
Well, I mean, there were a lot of tracks on this album sound a lot alike. They follow the same feel. There were some that sort of went out of that, but the one that really stuck, the one that has the most earworm quality would be, in my mind, the You Could Take a Lot. It was made to have a hook. It followed it followed a formula, but that formula works. It had some use of some effects, some vocal effects and stuff that they probably didn't, but it definitely feels like, a late 90s, early aughts, pop rock track. Very similar to what you were getting in at the backstages of Warped Tours in 2004. Yeah.
Very interesting. I think we can go back around the horn. Yeah, some of the interesting tracks can go back around the horn. Drew, what would be kind of your thoughts on the album overall? Kind of your conclusive thoughts?
This is an album that it's one of those weird, like I said at the beginning, it's one of those weird things where it's like, I don't have anything bad to say about the record, but I don't have anything that is going to make me want to go back to this record later. There are records, like the last one that Swire brought up, that I picture myself going back to later on when I have time and looking up the band and stuff like that. I couldn't remember half the time to go back to this record as we were listening to it for the show and stuff like that. So it was one of those things where it's like, I don't have anything bad to say about it. It was exactly what it set out to be. Like Brett said, it's that sort of pop rock, Ben Foldsy, late 90s sort of thing. And if that's your jam, go for it. It's not usually my speed, so it was something that if it was on, I'll bump my head to it in the back of the car and laugh as Ryan sings it in the front of the car or whatever. But what have you? That was pretty much it for me.
Mm-hmm. And Brett, what would be your thoughts on the album overall?
This album didn't have an aha moment. There was no big catch, I see what they're doing there, kind of a moment. It doesn't go out of its way to differentiate it from its genre. It sort of is something that I wouldn't be able to pick this band out. There's no uniqueness to it that I could hold on to. It could use a little more upbeat. It could have been more upbeat, but that's not what they were going for. And they don't necessarily make albums just for me to listen to. But I probably won't come across this album again, but, that's me. There's just not a whole lot dragging me back to this album.
Mm-hmm. It's very pretty. pretty vocals and kind of the pretty sounds. And it's fun once you're listening to it, but like Drew said, it kind of leaves a honestly not a weird aftertaste, more like a very vanishing aftertaste. It's like a wine with the back of the taste disappears.
I figured it out for me. I figured out the metaphor for me. It's juicy fruit. If you've ever...
Are you sure juicy fruit is the taste that's going to move you? I don't know that this is moving anyone.
Juicy fruit. How so?
It was fine while it was there, but it fades quickly.
Yes. It's like a wine where it's a really nice front and middle, but the back is completely disappears on you, and then you don't really remember it much. But Patrick, what would be your thought on the album overall?
I can't disagree with anything you guys have said. I can't. It's this style of music is very much out of my wheelhouse of what I normally listen to, but this particular album grabbed me for whatever reason. It just, there was a summer where this was like on in my car every other day when I was driving, and that's how things are. I mean, we all have those albums that one summer were the thing we listened to, and it might not necessarily match all of our other, collection, but it works. And if you like piano-driven indie rock, listen to it. If you don't, you don't, and that's cool. But I like it. I'm sad they don't make music anymore.
I'm sure that they're doing well on their own, but yeah, for people that love this style of music, I imagine it would be very sad for them not to get more of it, which is cool. Which is not cool, which is kind of sad. But that's it. For that, and we get to our main event of the evening. We have our Haiku reviews. Let's see who I'm going to have start. I'm going to have Drew start. Drew, what is your haiku?
A lot of bass bounce while the record is playing. What record was it?
You did listen to the right album, right, Drew?
Yes.
Right?
I knew that joke was coming when I wrote it, but it was too good of a joke for me not to put in there.
Yeah. Brett, what is your haiku?
It's unfortunate. This album could be better if they took more risks.
Mm-hmm. My haiku, pretty indie rock that you can groove and dance to. Plink, plinky, plunky fun. And last but not least, Patrick, what is your haiku?
Happy memories of the first time I heard this, so sad they are gone.
Mm-hmm. And those are our haikus. But that's it for our episode of of Record Breakers.
Whoa! Party foul.
Sorry, I've got the girls of FX haunting me from behind my shoulder, so I'm like Halijuku has invaded all of my podcasts. Hi Victoria. Hi. But that's it for Record Breakers this week. You can find this album on our Spotify playlist. Go on there if you're playing at home. You can also find there, presumably, our next... Actually, not really, because I actually looked it up and couldn't find it on there. You won't find the next one on our Spotify playlist, but you'll be able to find it on other places, so you're going to have to go out and hunt it down. But either way, the next album is going to be provided by Brett. Brett, what do you got for us next week?
Well, I'm bringing us something, similar, nice, smooth, beautiful people singing beautifully. No, I'm bringing the Dead Kennedys and their album Plastic Surgery Disasters. And normally that comes bundled with In God We Trust Incorporated. So listen to that for a little extra credit, and we'll be bringing that to you shortly.
Same bat time, same bat channel. And of course, that is then, and this is now. You can find us all over the internet. Patrick is at The Swagger. Brett is at HeyBittyBibbard, HIBBITYBIBBARD. Drew is at XJuicyForX. I'm at PD Rave. The show is at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. Recordbreakerspodcast@gmail.com. iTunes, Stitcher, subscribe to us, YouTube, subscribe, share, like, give us some feedback. We welcome it always. But until next time, hasta los huevos.
I'm just gonna go and do some lawn care, guys.